Welcome to a long-awaited video, ladies and gentlemen. Who am I talking about in this one? I'm talking about the new age Karate Kid, Miguel Diaz, El Serpiente. Now, I want to start this video by saying, in terms of arcs, Miguel's arc is one of my favorites this season, and I said that the same as well for Robbie. Because to me, the standout characters this season are by a country mile Eli and Tori. The way they developed to another level is just insane. But I've always said that Season 5 will be the season that plants the seeds for the endgame. I think this season's taken that position. I think there are so many seeds that are planted in this season that pertain to Miguel's long-term arc. And while I know people are disappointed with how it turned out for him at the All Valley, not winning a trophy or barely competing, Miguel's whole premise, that the whole arc for Miguel, is that he is not defined by a trophy. He may be a champion, yes, but his character is so much more than a bit of silverware. Throughout the entirety of this show, Miguel has been what I like to call the heart and the soul of this entire thing. You can take this all the way back to Season 1, when we all first started watching the show back in the YouTube Red days. The appeal of Johnny filling the Miyagi role, and Miguel basically being Daniel and flipping the roles and, reversing everything. It worked perfectly, and it worked wonders. And I like the approach that they had with Miguel this season. I had this feeling before Season 4 dropped that tension was going to rise between Johnny and Miguel, and not necessarily in the way of they hate each other, but with the bonding of the dojos, it was absolutely inevitable that Miguel would take such a liking to Miyagi-Do, and by extension a liking to Daniel LaRusso as well, of which happened, which we did see. And this is where I do feel bad for Johnny, because a lot of his past, with his father being absent and disappearing, has clearly influenced a lot of the decisions that he's taken with his son Robbie and with Miguel. And seeing, losing Robbie already, and such an occurrence could happen again with Miguel and losing him to his former rival, that's emotional, that's heartbreaking for him. But I think one of the most emotional and heartbreaking scenes in the entire show, as much as it was great for me to see Robbie come home and be united with his father, as I said, that was heartwarming. What's heartbreaking is when Miguel helps Johnny into bed, and Johnny literally says, "I love you too, Robbie," after Miguel says, "I love you" to him. And the look on Miguel's face, the heartbreak, the emotion, and then he just slowly walks out of shot. Man, it hit hard, and it didn't really hit me until I rewatched it that is what broke Miguel. And then you can see it in the All Valley, you can see it in the tournament. The reason Miguel wins, the reason Miguel has his back spasm or whatever, isn't necessarily due to the injury and his back playing up. It's because his head wasn't in the game. When it came to the All Valley, he didn't know what he was fighting for anymore. His heart wasn't in it. And there's nothing worse for a champion than not knowing why they want to win the thing in the first place. And seeing how he bonded with Daniel across the season, and giving that parallel to Johnny, where Johnny introduces him to the badass music, and, Daniel introduces him to Pete Cetera and Billy Joel and all these other people. It shows him the other perspective and the other style, and that's why I've said that Miguel is by far and above the most balanced person of this show, because he's able to take points from A and points from B, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, and find the middle. And I think what really drives it home this season, and no pun intended when I say this, is things like Daniel teaching him to drive, Miguel getting the headband. Not even Samantha LaRusso had the headband. Miguel got given the headband. Now you could say, okay, they did that for the Karate Kid's poetic symmetry, but I also think it's deeper than that. I think this is also foreshadowing Miguel's future. I think Miguel, in Season 5, might join Miyagi-Do full time. I wouldn't be surprised. There's even a moment this season where he says to Johnny, "What if I don't want to stop learning Miyagi-Do?" Because it just works, it fits for him, and I think he can do it. I think it naturally works for him the same way it's worked for Eli. And if you look at it in the original kind of perspective, if Miguel had started with Miyagi-Do the same way Daniel did, things could have played out the same way for him, but just with a different gi. And I think what really hits home this season is there's a lot of miscommunication, and that's always the case with this show more than anything. is Johnny's deep-seated insecurity about the fathers and the sons is what then seeps into Miguel. And then Miguel starts to feel like, especially towards the back half of the season, Miguel somewhat feels out of place. He feels like, man, what, my heart's not in this. Even in the training, he leaves Miguel to the side. He doesn't train him the same way. He treats him differently. And then when he starts revealing, okay, me and your mum are, we're dating, it adds this whole other layer that he stops treating him like sensei and student and father and son. And it's weird for Miguel to adjust to. It's really weird. And there's even a moment that's almost like Far From Home when Peter is talking to Aunt May and Happy, where, Miguel sat down with Carmen and Johnny and the same kind of things playing out. And he's fine with it at first, but then as the episodes progress, you can see it sort of wane on him because it's a new adjustment. It's something that's completely new. His mum's always been separate and Johnny's always been sensei. Now that he's got to see Johnny as his dad, and then that adds a whole nother layer of responsibility for Johnny, because now he can't look at him like a student, he's got to look at him like a son, and he's always looked at him like a son, but I mean in like the general sense, he looks at him like an absolute son. And I think what really sticks with Johnny this season is the fact that Miguel buggers off, and there's this drive and urgency to go and get him back, which is why I'm so happy that Robbie is now home, because we can get what we have all been waiting for, is a Miguel and Robbie conversation. These two need to have a conversation. They really do. And it looked like before the house fight altercation, it looked like they wanted to have a conversation. And then Stingray came in and yada yada yada. But it feels like Miguel and Robbie are one conversation away from basically dealing with it and burying it. I really feel like that is on the cards. But more of that for Season 5. But I think Miguel was in line for an absolute killer arc, and the way this show is going, don't be surprised if there is another tournament down the line and we see Miguel win. Miguel is the champion. It's a staple in storytelling, where the champion rises to fall and then to rise like a phoenix out of the ashes and rise higher than they ever were before. Don't be surprised if Miguel has that kind of arc. If there's an international tournament, an over 18 tournament, you never know. You just never know. And I think one of the things that we all love about this show is the bond between Johnny and Miguel. It's what made Season 1 so strong, is the bond between these two. And, while Season 2, 3, and 4 have progressed, that hasn't been as much the main focus, because there's been other characters like Eli and Sam and Tori and Robbie and Dimitri and Kyla. There's been other characters that have come into the fold, but there's one scene this season that, despite the heartbreaking scene where Johnny says, I love you to Robbie, and then Miguel walks out heartbroken, there's a scene before that where Johnny and Miguel are sat alone in the Eagle Fang training warehouse, and they're just having a conversation. Just a simple conversation. And I don't get sensei-student from this. I get father and son. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'm calling this now. I wouldn't be surprised if Miguel doesn't find his father at all. I really wouldn't be, because I don't think this Puerto Rico arc is going to take up a long time. I think it's going to be a 2-episode thing, and that's that. And with the level of complexity of Miguel's father, you can't really solve that in 2 episodes unless you rush through it. So it could be a situation where Miguel goes to find his father, and he never does, and he never finds his father. But then he sees Johnny come after him all this way to prove himself. When it gets to the All Valley and, Johnny says, I know what's going through your head, basically, and Miguel said, you do? And then Johnny says, look, the pressure, the nerves, the blah, blah, blah. And that's not what's going through Miguel's head at all. What's going through Miguel's head is, my heart's not in this, and I don't think you don't have my interests in this anymore, I feel like we're not connecting the same way we used to. Their relationship becomes strained, and while Johnny gains Robbie back, he loses Miguel. It's that thing that's happened across the whole show. You lose one, you gain another. You gain one, you lose another. And I am hoping that in Season 5, he can just have both of them home. Now, I do think, again, Miguel will train with Miyagi-Do. I think that'll be his route. But I don't think Johnny will be angry at that. I think he'll come to accept it after the fallout of Season 4. And I think Robbie and Miguel will bury that beef. But Miguel has a long way to go. Him being kicked off the balcony set up a massive chain of events that are really going to kickstart... is really going to kickstart his arc into motion. And I really feel like you're going to see the seeds of that across the whole of the next season. And I think Miyagi-Do is key for that. Now, obviously, he's got a lot of explaining to do when he comes back. His mum's not going to be happy. I think she's with them too. His mum's not going to be happy. Sam's not going to be happy. There's going to be, you know, Eli and Dimitri. And I'm like, where the hell did you go, bro? But I would, instead of Miguel's father showing up, I would rather have Miguel's father not be in it at all. Miguel goes to find his father and he never finds him. And the reason I want that is because there are so many people in the real world, and I've talked about father figures before, whether it's either Robbie or Eli or Miguel or whoever, or Johnny even, where there are so many people in the real world that never get closure with their father, ever. And, you know, Daniel even says the line, the nugget of information to him. I grew up without a father, but it didn't mean I couldn't find someone who didn't fill that role, and that was Miyagi. So what if Miguel goes on this journey, this soul-searching journey to find his father, and he never does. He never finds him. And then Johnny shows up. Because it's like that thing that Rey goes through in the sequel trilogy, where your family aren't coming back, but there is a family that is for you. Okay, now it's just an example, I'm just using that as an example. That the Skywalkers take Rey in as one of their own. That could be the case here. Miguel goes looking for his father and is heartbroken because he can't find him. And maybe Miguel's father, you know, Miguel's father doesn't know he exists. But maybe that's a good thing that he doesn't know he exists. Because the last thing we need is you know, some kind of crazy theory with cartels being involved in Cobra Kai. Like, we don't need that. But I think it would serve so much more of an emotional plot point if Miguel doesn't find his father. If we never see Miguel's father. Because I think so many people could relate to that on such a deep level. And I think where you can go with that is you can have him and Johnny rebonding over it. And then it allows Johnny the opportunity to patch things up with El Serpiente. It allows him that opportunity to fix it all up and sort it out. And that's what excites me about Miguel's arc going forward. And I did say this before Season 4 dropped, that Miguel winning the All Valley was probably not going to happen because they needed to do something different. And I felt like there would be seeds planted across the whole season that would surprise us and shock us. And that is exactly what has happened here. Guys and girls, jump in the comment section down below. There's a lot with Miguel's character to digest over this season. There's a lot I want to talk about overall, so I will be talking about key scenes, key moments, and things that really add layers to his character. But this is like a general sort of overall of what I thought of Miguel's character arc this season, and how heartbreaking it was to see Miguel, you know, start out the season, you know, his usual chirpy self, and then as the season progresses just get chipped away at, plucked away at, because of the confrontation and the conflict between Johnny and Daniel not sorting their shit out and constantly bickering to astronomical levels. And then, you know, what Robbie said to him at the house, another house fight, you know, he's just using you to feel better about me. It's then paid off that same episode when he puts Johnny into the bed, he tells Johnny he loves him, and Johnny says, I love you too, Robbie. Like, how heartbreaking. Like, I mean, that first watching it, that scene hit like a ton of bricks, but rewatching it, man, it hits you. It hits you. But guys, we're marching forth to 7K over here. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. I did a Chosen live recently that talked about my overall thoughts of Cobra Kai Season 4. I touched on Boba Fett for a good half an hour in there, so, you know, if you're a Star Wars fan, that's good for you too. And yeah, that's all I have to say for this video, and until the next one, because it's a Miguel video, I don't know. I don't really have a tagline to end this with. I'm just going to talk about a scene at the start of the season where they're all having a happy family dinner. Carmen, Yaya, Johnny, and Miguel. And Miguel starts bringing up Ali. More or less cock-blocking Johnny. That, I was just like, no, Miguel, no, shut up. I love you, bro, but shut up. But I can't wait to see where he goes next season. Plethora of videos coming your way on his arc this season and the details that we got. I will see you all in another video soon, and remember, El Serpiente will rise.